Morning, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday. That means it is Writer's Chat. And I am your co-host, Brandy Bro. I'm here with my fellow co-hosts, Melissa Stroh and Norma Poor. Johnny will be back next week. And as I said, this is Writer's Chat where craft connects community. We have a great show for you today, talking about the 101 of screenwriting. So, screenwriting fundamentals. And we have a great guest today with Zena Dell Lowe. And I'm going to turn it over to Melissa to tell you a little bit more about her. Melissa?
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Writer's Chat. We're so excited. Zena is one of our favorite return guests. She's been here many times to share her wisdom for them. She's part of the storyteller mission, so she's shared a lot of things about story structure, about creating story. But I'm going to give you just a little bit about her from her bio directly. Zena Dell Lowe is an award-winning screenwriter, producer, and founder of the Storyteller's Mission, where she trains writers to master the craft of story. With decades of industry experience and credits spanning film, TV, and stage, Zena is known for her practical, entertaining approach to teaching. Her hands-on workshops give writers of all levels the tools and confidence to bring their stories to life. And I've definitely found that to be true, and I think you will today too as you listen to her. So welcome, Zena. We're excited to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. That's a wonderful introduction, and it sounds so glorious. And the funny thing is, like, here I am, I'm teaching you guys some screenwriting today, and I was actually talking to a girlfriend of mine the other day, and I said, the thing that's been most discouraging about being a screenwriter is after 20 years, I've never had a full-length feature made that I've written. So that's some of the reality that you should know about this industry. I've been paid to write them, but they don't necessarily get made, and that's out of my hands. So all we can control is the writing. That's all we can control. And the thing that I love about talking screenwriting, now, years ago, I had transitioned at writers' conferences, and, I used to just teach screenwriters. That's all I did. But years ago, I had some novelists attend one of my classes, I think because they'd already seen everybody else. And they're like, well, at least this is somebody new. And they were blown away by the stuff I was teaching from a screenwriting point of view, because they really felt that the principles of how to write for a screenplay can really make a novel come alive. And I agree with that. And ever since then, I've adapted a lot of my courses so that they are actually perfect for novelists. So I don't actually primarily teach screenwriting anymore, which makes this exciting, because the truth is there's really only two maybe requirements to be a screenwriter. And so what I want to address, first of all, what we're going to do today is I'm going to just talk about some of the differences between being a screenwriter and being a novelist. But then I'm going to show you how to do it. It's a hands-on, practical approach, and I'm going to try to simplify it as much as possible so that you can, even in this hour, you can walk away feeling like you understand how to write a screenplay. And I think that'd be a great thing. So, and I'm not even sure how many of you in this group are actually genuinely interested. But even if you're not, even if you're like, I don't actually want to be a screenwriter, it will still help you to read screenplays better if you read them, or it will help you to watch movies better, or a lot of us might not be writing full-length screenplays, but the truth is videos are the future. I mean, even short form videos on YouTube and little creative things, this is still going to give you an idea of how to even do that better so that you can always use this. It's very practical in very many ways. All right. So to that end, we'll start. I'm not going to share my screen yet. That'll be when we get into the samples, but there's a couple of things you need to know about the differences between writing screenplays and novels. So first of all, screenplays are different because they are a technical document, meaning the formatting matters because you're not just writing it as a writer. Everything that you write in a screenplay, you have to think of as being for the production process. Nobody publishes screenplays. And yes, I know there are some screenplays you can buy as published things. Generally speaking, those aren't the original screenplays. Generally, what they're packaging are transcripts of the actual movie. So I always tell my students, don't read those, read the original screenplay, because that's what got the project sold. And the thing is, screenplays are collaborative. So a novelist can sit at home and write an entire novel. Screenwriters can also write a screenplay, but at the end of the day, then they pass that off to the production department. That's just the blueprint for the production process. The screenplay is just the blueprint. It isn't the finished product. A novel is the finished product. So it's totally different in that regard. So a lot of the little tricks or the little things that confuse people, actually, if you understand the rules behind why they exist and what department they're going through, it really helps you to just understand screenwriting better. And all of a sudden, it doesn't have to be so overwhelming because you're not just memorizing the rules, you just understand what the rules are for. So again, it's about writing for the production process. You're never going to write in a vacuum, and it's never done. One of the things I will say about screenwriting and I don't mean to denigrate my own art form because I love it, but to me, it's not sacred. I am willing to rewrite my scene, whatever, even as we're shooting it on set, right? It's always adaptable, changeable, fixable. It doesn't have to be fixed and set in stone. It's not sacred. It's not precious. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't work and rework and work and rework my stuff. I do. I make it as excellent as I possibly can, certainly to be able to sell a project. But the truth is, it's not like a novel, where a novel, I think of it, and this is probably why I've never finished one, I think of a novel as being sacred and a screenplay as being flexible and transient even. It's just never finished. In fact, even when you shoot it on the set, the editor is going to come along and it will change the final product. The script, it's not done until it's a movie. That's the sacred product in my industry. Okay, a couple of other things, briefly, so that then we can get into the technical aspect of it, which is fun if you're into that kind of thing. So one is that it's very different in terms of how the information comes to the reader. Because what you have to think about is that even though you're writing a technical document, it still has to be good, right? It still has to be riveting to read. I'm trying to move my hair away from my microphone there. It still has to be a page turner. And a lot of people, this is where people screw up when they're trying to write a screenplay, is they only think of it technically and they don't think about it in terms of how good it has to be. It should be riveting. It should be exciting. I liken screenplays in a way to poetry, because poetry is about strong word choice, strong verbs, action, but economy of language. And the same is true with screenplays. You are trying to pack a punch in as few words as possible. You're trying to create a picture in as few words as possible, but it's got to be riveting and powerful and draw people in. But also, the way that I'm interpreting it is always and forever through the lens of the camera. So as a screenwriter, I'm writing it based on what I'm seeing on the screen. Right now, you're seeing me, but maybe if I did a different frame, you might see an extreme close-up of my lips or my nose, God forbid, or my, my eyes and just my eyes. I mean, there are all sorts of things I can do as a screenwriter where I am reframing it and you're seeing it, because what I'm writing for is what you're seeing on the screen. I'm not writing it like I would a novel. In a novel, everything that you understand in that novel, even if it's third person, is always filtered through the brain of the character. That's why point of view is so important in a novel, because whoever's point of view we're in means you're filtering everything we're learning in that chapter is coming from the point of view of the character whose head we're in. But you're never in a character's head in a screenplay. Nevertheless, you still have a point of view. There is a point of view, and it's always your main character. Again, primary difference between a novel and a screenplay. In a screenplay, you typically have one protagonist and then you have supporting characters. In a novel, you can have multiple protagonists. I would argue that generally speaking, one of those protagonists is the main character more than the others. Nevertheless, if you ever have seen an adaptation of any really great story, they ultimately focus on one particular character as the main character, because ultimately the entire story is from that person's perspective, even if we are temporal, they're not even in the scene. So it's about how that scene is affecting that person. So even if we go to the bad guy for a moment, it's still impacting the main character. So we just show the parts that are necessary for that. So there's a lot of differences in that. But the most important one is to understand that everything is coming through the lens of the camera, not through the brain of the character. And because of that, then, in screenwriting, you can never tell me what a character is thinking or feeling. And I say this a lot, I say it all the time, and I still have to say it even with my screenwriting students. It's so hard for us, especially if we're avid readers. It is very difficult for us to make that adjustment to get out of our character's head and to just describe what we're seeing on the screen. So that means that if I want to show you, this is why it's so powerful, by the way, for novelists to get into this mindset a little bit, because it's the quintessential showing and not telling. I am not allowed to tell you anything about how my character is thinking or feeling. I can only show you through action and behavior, through reactions, through props, through visual images. I can show you, but I can't tell you. And so whatever I show you has to be strong enough for you, the reader, to be able to interpret, to be able to extrapolate from what I'm showing you how the character is feeling in that moment. And it is important. You know, I see a lot of screenplays where, because it's a technical document, the writers may not be fully embodying the characters, and they're not thinking about it in terms of it being character driven anymore, but it is. It is very much character driven. And what's super important for me as a reader is to always understand how my character is feeling at any given time, my main character, how they are feeling about any of the other characters or what's happening in their world without ever telling you. Very, very, very interesting stuff. I had an audition yesterday. I do some acting like on the side, hobbyist. And I had an audition yesterday, and I was pleased to read the guy's script. One of the descriptions he used when he was introducing a character is, and talk about economy of language and packing a punch. He introduced a character named Cheryl, and he wrote, Cheryl, 50s, clipboard energy, storms into the room. What a great description, right? you immediately have this image of a woman, clipboard, she knows she's going to tell you what is going on in there, right? And so I loved that. That's great writing. It's economy of language, but I'm showing you through behavior and I'm giving you a visual clue. That is one of the only times that you are allowed to say something that's maybe not as showing, because it's the character introduction. And we always have a little wiggle room when we have the character introduction. But mostly you are trying to show me through behavior and action and reactions. And sometimes, like I said, you'll use a visual image instead of showing a character reaction. That's the better you get, the more you can use visual images, the better you will be. We don't have time to show clips because I only have an hour. So, but I am going to tell you a couple of things that I would show you if we had time. Did anybody here ever see a film called The Hours? Okay. It wasn't great, but it was fascinating. The reason it wasn't great is because I think it's a false worldview. It was a very hopeless worldview. It was touching on important themes. It was basically about women in the 50s, what is, in their circumstances, trying to realize their womanhood and not be oppressed by men. But it was from I think a falsely feminist perspective where it just really believed that women were totally oppressed and in their roles as mothers and wives and that sort of thing. So they had to break free from their chains. But there's this wonderful scene, a wonderfully visual scene. One of the characters, by the way, even goes and commits suicide because she's so oppressed. And I don't think any of us want to say that that's the way out. That's a false worldview. That's nihilism. But there's one scene that is so fascinating where one of the characters goes to a hotel and she's laying in the bed, and I don't even remember much about her story, but I think she might be the woman who her husband was an alcoholic, but she was being blamed for not being a good enough wife, which was actually a very real problem. Back in the day, they really thought that there was something wrong with the woman, that the husband was out drinking. Anyway, she goes to this hotel and she lays in this bed. And as she's laying there, all of a sudden, water starts flooding into the room and filling up the room and filling it up and filling it up. And then, and she's in the bed and the water's splashing over her and she's floating up to the surface. That is a very strong visual images that is showing me how she's feeling. It's not literally happening. It's a visual to show me how she's feeling. And it worked for that film. Now that's a creative license thing that you would have to claim the right for. But that's what I'm talking about. And when I say a visual image, sometimes you can use a visual image very strongly to convey how a character is feeling without ever telling me. Okay, so these are just some big scope things. There's so much more to learn. The only other thing I'm going to say about screenwriting is that it is limited in terms of length, right? So the reason proper formatting matters, the reason you have to learn how to do the proper formatting is because of poorly formatted script is clunky timing. Everything that you write becomes part of the production process, even down to me budgeting what I'm shooting, figuring out how much money I need to raise for this project because of page numbers. And roughly 1 minute of properly formatted script, or one page of properly formatted script equals roughly 1 minute of screen time. So you have to do it right so that you have the correct timing. Now there's another reason why this is important, and that is because it dictates then how long your film is going to be. So typically speaking, what we see in the box office, and things are different now because we have different ways of viewing, but we still kind of have stuck to the 2-hour rule for a feature film, roughly. Sometimes you can go over if you're the Avengers, but we're not. So we have to stick to that 2-hour rule. And primarily that means 120 pages, because 100 pages is roughly 100 minutes or less. Never over 120. In fact, most of the time they don't want 120. But I always shoot for 120 and then I edit it down. And I try to get it to somewhere between 100 to 110 pages. And so when I'm working with novelists and they're talking about words, the number of words, I'm lost. I'm like, well, how many pages is that? Because as a screenwriter, I work in pages. Pages are very important. So you want to shoot for the correct amount of pages. And I was going to say, the other reason that's important is box office. It still is important because primarily where films make their money back is in the box office, when people go to the movies. And so notice you have 5 movies a day. If you have a 3-hour film, you can only have 3 showings a day in that particular theater. So they want more box office. They want more viewings. They want more showings. They're going to make more money. Not just the movie theaters, but of course the studios. So that's typically, I mean, I hate to say it, but that's why, it's like, why is it 2 hours? Well, that's why. It's about how often we can see it. Okay. Sorry, my alarm keeps going off. Okay. So before I jump into the formatting, let's open it for a brief Q&A. I see that there's some chat stuff I haven't been looking. Are there questions here?
There was one. I think that the question was, technically speaking, is there a difference between a screenplay and a script?
Ah, great question. I'm using them interchangeably. Okay. Now, what you could say, all right, there's screenplays, there's teleplays, there are plays. A play, we're not even going to put it in the same category. It's a totally different format, totally different layout, all right? So now we're down to screenplays and teleplays, but the formatting is essentially the same. So if you understand how to write a screenplay, you can write a teleplay, but we just call them scripts. So we use them interchangeably. It's a script. Now, the same thing is true if you're writing even a short script or, if I've written an industrial or I've written some sort of video for a company where they're going to do in-house training videos, I'm basically writing it. It's a script. It's a script, I don't call it a screenplay because that's not what it is, but it's a script and it's the same formatting. So you want to use, you're using them interchangeably. Hopefully that helps. Okay. Any other questions?
I am skimming through. Most of it seems a lot of interactive discussion.
To sketch out the screenplay on 90 index cards to start. If you can do that, see if it, okay. So yes, it does sound accurate-ish. I don't know why you'd need 90 index cards.
Yeah, that's to sketch out a play for a general outline. Yeah.
Okay. So I use a different story structure outline for my screenplays, which I teach. I have an online course on called Hollywood Story Structure Made Easy. So it's different than 90 index cards. But yes, so I do flesh out my story, not in depth though. I hit the main points. There's things I have to know, and then I have to get it into that time frame. Now, I will tell you, as somebody who has adapted a lot of stuff, Like I've adapted Eva Marie Everson's novel, Five Brides. I was hired by the people at Sony, not PureFlix, but their other division, to adapt that into a screenplay. Well, guess what? A novel is a lot longer than the screenplay can be. So my first draft was about 136 pages, and my Act 3, I spent so much time in Act 1 and Act 2 that my Act 3 was like 12 pages. So it didn't work. It wasn't right, which is part of the writing process. And so I had to go back then and rework things and figure out, okay, what is my inciting incident? Where is my Act 1 turning point? What do I need to cut to make this fit? It can be very difficult to adapt a novel. People think, oh, it's easy, it's already written. Well, yeah, but you got to get it into, it's got to change. You got to get it into, that's why I'm so impressed with the Harry Potter films. I mean, some of those books were huge, but they managed to get them into movies that were great. The movies themselves were great and were still the essence of the books. But it's tricky. How do you distill it into that form? So yes, you could do, I don't know what the 90 index cards is. I know there are people that use index cards. I've never used index cards. I use the Hollywood plot map that I teach. But there's different ways. There's no one wrong way. And it does help you to know what you have and if it can fit into a proper format. Just checking the time. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now.
Right.
And what I'm going to do to teach you some formatting stuff, I'm actually going to pull up a screenplay I'm currently working on. All right? It's not done. It's something I'm currently writing, and I'm going to use it to demonstrate proper formatting. And we'll see what you guys think here. So just remember, it's a work in progress. Okay, you should see this.
Yep.
This meeting is being recorded. Okay, I'm gonna make that bigger. Hopefully you can see that. This is a screenplay called Betty that I'm working on, and it's about. Well, let's find out what it's about, shall we? This is the opening scene. Fade in. By the way, you always, I don't know how many of you are familiar with a screenplay, so I'm gonna show you a little bit, and then we'll break it down, and I'll teach you what you just learned. But one of the best ways to learn the formatting is to read screenplays. So you always start with fade in. It just is the way we do it. Fade in. This is called a slug line. Exterior New York, night. It's early morning. We hear the hum of traffic and the occasional honk of a horn, the sounds of nighttime city life. Zoom, a speeding insect flies by. Exterior New York, brownstone neighborhood, night. We track with the flying insect as it zooms through the streets, past neon signs and closed shop fronts until it stops at a 3-story apartment building. It buzzes up, 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 and into an open window on the 3rd floor where we can hear someone snoring. Interior, Betty's apartment, living room, night. Insects POV as we glide through the apartment. It's neat and artistic with splashes of color on contemporary modern furniture, fuzzy pillows, and bold paintings. The sound of snoring increases as we move toward the hallway. Interior, Betty's apartment, hallway, night. The insect pauses at a map tacked to the wall. A few red circles mark forest locations in the Northwest, Montana, Wyoming, Washington, Idaho. Next to one is a wordless postcard tacked with a push pin. The bug blinks, mechanical behavior, and we see a faint lens flex and hear a micro servo whir. Is the bug actually a robot? It happens too quickly for us to be sure. All right. We'll keep going just a little bit. Let's see. Interior, Betty's apartment, bedroom, night. The insect buzzes into the bedroom where the snoring is almost impressive. Unlike the rest of the apartment, this room is messy and disorganized. Clothes are strewn about, and the nightstand is cluttered with books and an empty pizza box. The buzzing stops as the insect perches on a ceiling fan directly above Betty Price, 50s. Wide awake, staring up at the ceiling, she glances at the lump snoring next to her. You know I can't sleep, right? The snoring continues. Betty taps the source of the racket. Hey, I'm talking to you. Her dog, Lulu, opens her eyes. Yeah, you. I told you that pizza would kick in your allergies, but no, you just had to have the crust. Lulu huffs, almost in agreement. Don't look at me like that. That's how we got here in the first place. Lulu drifts back to sleep and starts snoring. Betty ruffles Lulu's fur and sighs, still wide awake. Okay. So, we see a number of things in this screenplay. Before we break it down, tell me your impressions. What do you know so far?
The thing that caught my first attention was you had certain words capitalized, and I wondered why.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So there's caps. We're going to talk about caps. Okay, what else? Oops.
She's looking for something, someone says, Sally in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Say that again then.
She's looking for something or someone. Looks like the
Oh, okay.
looks like the
Good.
bug is kind of spying or something for somebody, is my guess.
Good. Excellent. So we're learning a lot about, notice how much we're learning right away, right? Were you drawn into the story?
Absolutely.
Yes.
The visual cues that you got with the fly gave you that impression of finding something out. And then as soon as you get to that room with the map and it landing there, that builds the intrigue. Okay, what's significant with the map? What's significant with the locations that it's honed in on? Why is this bug possibly a mechanical spying device? So, that pulled me right in.
Excellent, excellent. So, and I'm using stylistic devices too. I'm doing a bug's point of view, which is kind of weird, right? Like, but it's visual. It's visual. But is Betty aware of it?
No.
Nope, Betty's not aware of it. Betty doesn't know. But yet, Betty has some stuff on her wall that is a little intriguing, right? So we don't fully get to know Betty. But what can we say about Betty so far?
She seems to live life on her own terms, very broad and bold, without maybe too much care about what others think.
Good, good. And also, is she entirely and completely happy?
Oh, no.
How do you know?
She's disgruntled with Lulu for sure, which I was amused at.
Yeah, real creative with the names for the dog, huh? But she's wide awake and it's the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And in all likelihood, it's not just because of Lulu snoring, right? Because of course she loves her dog. And do we like a person who loves their dog? Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, she's sleeping in bed with the dog, which tells you too, she's in her 50s, she's not married. There's no kids around. She's single. We don't know much about her, but we know that her dog is her partner, right? And she is wide awake. Okay, now let's look at the formatting part. So I'm going to share my screen again, and we're just going to break down some of this formatting stuff. So what you need to know is that in a screenplay, and this is so wonderful, there's basically only 4 things. There's only 4 different types of things you might be doing at any given time. Ignoring fade in for now, even though you would start every script with that. The first thing in every scene, now a screenplay gets broken down by scenes. It's always about scenes. Every scene should be written to the best of its ability. You want each scene to be riveting, but scenes can have sequences. They can be attached to other scenes, but even still, you're making the most of the scene. And what constitutes the scene is the slug line, okay? Every new scene or shot, or not shot, no, every new scene starts with a slug line. What's in a slug line? What can you tell me are the 3 pieces of information that you see in this slug line?
The location and time.
Yep.
Good. That's right. So this part, what does EXT mean?
I am not sure.
Yeah.
Okay. What does INT mean?
Exterior and interior.
Exterior and interior would, yeah.
Ding, 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 ding. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. So now we abbreviate to exterior or interior. But all this means is that you're literally either outside or inside. That's it. It's either you're and why is that important? Because it's where you're setting up the camera. And the reason that's important is because the lighting department needs to know how to light it. If it's an outside shot, it's different requirements for the technical part than if it's inside. So we always have to tell them that the slug line is always for the production team. There's nothing fancy about your slug lines. There's no artistry in the slug lines. There's only consistency and actual information. And yet, it's the very first thing you have to write for every single scene. So, exterior, New York. I'm telling them we're in broad New York, very, very big here, and it's night. Okay, so the location is New York and it's night. That's important, again, for lighting and for set design. And it's early morning. I did say that, early morning, middle of the night. We hear the hum of traffic and the occasional honk of a horn, the sounds of nighttime city life. Zoom! A speeding insect flies by. Exterior, we're still in New York, but we're getting more specific. Brownstone neighborhood. So notice I put a little dash and I got a little more specific with my location. So now we're moving and it's not just so broad of New York. And you always go from general to specific. So you go from big location to little. Now I won't have to put New York under everything. It's just that we're still in that introductory piece. So exterior New York, brownstone neighborhood, night. Then from that brownstone neighborhood, we land in front of a 3-story apartment building and we buzz up, 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 very visual, and into an open window on the 3rd floor where we can hear someone snoring. Interior Betty's apartment, living room, night. Now notice every time I'm in Betty's apartment, I'm going to have to say interior Betty's apartment, interior Betty's apartment, interior Betty's apartment. But every one of these rooms is a different location, therefore it gets its own slug line. You don't shoot a screenplay by order. It's not chronological. You shoot it by location. So what they're going to do is they're going to take my screenplay, break it into a report so that all the scenes that take place interior Betty's apartment living room are in one pile, and we're just going to knock those out one day and wrap the location, and then we'll do that usually chronologically, but nevertheless we shoot by location. So if the character is in different clothes because it's a different day in that location, then the actor has to go change, but we're still set up in that because it's a lot harder to set up all of the technical stuff for a particular location than it is for the actor to change their clothes or get different props or whatever. Are you with me? So again, every time, now notice I have to be consistent. I'm not going to say interior Betty's house, living room. It's Betty's apartment, always the same, or else it will tell them it's different. If I say interior Betty's house, that means she has another location. That's not her apartment. And I'm not going to say interior Betty Price's apartment because I've already established it as Betty's apartment. So you have to be consistent. But you know when to change the slug line because every time you go into a different room Every time there's a new location, it's a new slug line. Why do they call it a slug line? I don't know. It's what they called it. It's a slug line. So, and I'm sure I could find that information, but it's just called a slug line. So interior Betty's apartment, living room, night. Interior Betty's apartment, hallway, night. Interior Betty's apartment, bedroom, night. Now, notice I'm not writing cut to. There used to be something in screenplays that at the end of each of these scenes you would write cut to. We don't do that anymore, but you'll see that in some films. But I do use it. And when I use it, it's when we have a different sequence. So see, so these first scenes, this is all one sort of sequence. It's all connected. It's all one big thing. Even though I have different scenes technically, because I have new slug lines, it's all one thing. But then I cut to interior Betty's apartment, bedroom, day. Now it's a different time of day. And so I wanted to make it a bigger transition. So we feel that in the reading. And then I'll keep it all of this until cut to. Now I'm going to a different time of day. And so I will use this rhythmically as it feels right to me. But that's part of my artistic use of the medium. And you can use those as you want. By the way, that is the fourth element of a screenplay, which we haven't gotten to yet. So I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's go back here to the opening. And so we've started out with a slug line for the scene. What's the very next thing? What would this line be called? What is this?
It's setting.
Close. You're close. We don't call it setting in screenplays, but you're absolutely right. It usually it includes the setting, but it doesn't just include the setting. It includes the visuals that I'm seeing on screen. It's called the action lines. Yep. Now, I like calling it action because it helps me to stay active. Now, other people have called it, oh, these are setting. But when I'm doing setting, all of a sudden that sort of makes me passive. But if I think of it as an action line, and you should think of all of it as action lines, anything in these areas, this is action, all of this is action lines. And I'm moving the story forward, and I'm describing to you what you're seeing on the screen. It's everything you're seeing on the screen. That's what I'm describing. I'm making sure that you understand what's happening, and I'm telling the camera department what they're shooting. I'm telling the director what they're shooting. Now, yes, somebody noticed the capitals and this sort of thing that is in here. We'll get to that in a bit. I want to get to the 4 elements that we're getting into. Because right now what's important to notice is that we've already gotten to 2 of the major elements of a screenplay, slug lines and action lines. Technically, you could write an entire screenplay with just those 2 elements and never use anything else. However, you have options to use other things in a scene. So every scene, the point is, every single scene must have those 2 things. You must have a slug line and you must have action. Anything else can be optional. And so we go down here, and what did I do? I exercised my option, which is the 3rd element, which is what?
Dialogue.
Dialogue. Exactly. Dialogue is my 3rd optional component of a screenplay. So I start, but I always start, always and forever, slug line action. You never go slug line dialogue. Now, a lot of people will get this wrong, especially if they're doing a scene in a car. They'll do a slug line, interior Betty's car, day, and they'll go right to dialogue. You never go to dialogue. Now, even some of the pros do this because they get lazy. But I think it's always necessary because when you start with action, it forces you to visualize the scene. And a dialogue, while there's heavy dialogue in screenplays, or there can be, dialogue is not primarily what a screenplay is composed of. It is visuals. So you always want to be thinking visually, and dialogue is an extension of the action. A play is different. It's very heavy dialogue, but a screenplay isn't. So always start with the visual. Always start with the action line. What am I seeing? Even if it's in a car. Because whether or not my character's feet are up on the dashboard, or whether or not my character is drinking a Coke and, smoking a cigarette in their car, or whether or not my character is reaching in the back seat for a map. I mean, or just even fiddling with the radio station. I am utilizing whatever the setting is to show something about my character. So if I'm thinking visually, this is how I get better as an artist. Always, 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 you start with a slug line and then you go to action line. But then you have the purview, the option to use dialogue. Dialogue is an extension of action. You can't sleep, I can't sleep, right? Hey, I'm talking to you. Notice I'm breaking up the dialogue with visuals. That's one of the important things about dialogue in a screenplay is you don't have gigantic blocks of dialogue. You almost always break it up with visuals because the primary thing in a screenplay is the visuals, not the dialogue. Now, there are times when you might have a little bit more, but you're always breaking it up. And in fact, if I read a screenplay and I see a huge block of dialogue on the page, I know that they're more of an amateur because it's just not pleasing to the eye. Now, the irony is that a lot of people, when they're reading the screenplay, they skip over these things. That's okay. You're still writing it. You're still writing it because you're thinking visually. But here's the other thing. The truth is you're trying not to, and this is where people get confused. What you don't want to do is micromanage your actor. So there's a rule in screenwriting, and I write it on my students' papers where I'll say LTAA, let the actors act. Because a lot of times what people will do is because they're trying to describe the action, they're actually describing every single micro expression and every single movement of the actor, and that's not action. That's actually putting an actor, a puppet, and they're like this puppet, a marionette, and you're dictating. So you don't want to do like, she looks away, she looks back, she looks away. Those are not that, think of it as being melodramatic. Whenever you're doing that, it's melodrama now. What you want to do is you're giving the information that helps establish character relationship, and then helps the reader to understand the scene. I like to say, keep it simple, stupid. Right? KISS. Keep it simple. So you want to describe, sometimes you are going to describe your character's reactions, but you're not going to do it in a way that is dictating what the actor is doing. You're going to do it in a way that helps us to interpret internal character emotion. So we're going to see more of that as we get a little further in the scene, but I just wanted to speak to that a little bit. Just be careful when you are cutting away that you're not micromanaging your actor. Okay, so here we are back in the scene. What's the fourth element then, which I've already talked about slightly? Okay, and you probably don't know what it's called, but this is called a transition. And there's different sorts of transitions. There's a cut to, there's dissolve to, there's blackout, there's match cut to. The better you get, the more you might use these. And it's about connecting scenes in certain ways, because a screenplay is about pacing. And so there's a way to utilize these that helps with the artistry of it. You don't ever have to use one. Ever. You never have to. Even this cut to, you're not wrong not to have it. It used to be that you had to have it because it helped with timing. But screenplays move a lot faster today than they did back in the day. I use them for pacing. It helps me to know what the sequences are. But I also use them artistically in certain places. So I can maybe pull up some examples of that. I know we don't have a ton of time. How much more time do I have?
Well, it is about noon,
Okay.
but we started a hair late, so
Can I go for a few more minutes? Is that okay?
yeah, a few more.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks.
So, all right. So let's scoot ahead here. Let's just see what happens after this. So we have her. She meets Mrs. McKnight, her neighbor. She goes back because I haven't gotten into the caps part yet. But here we have Betty. Now we cut to, because now I'm going to take Betty into work, right? So interior, fancy high-rise, elevator day. See you on Betty. That means close up on Betty, who bounces nervously as the elevator rises. Ding! The elevator doors open. Natalie, and this means off screen. There's all these little tricks that are actually really easy once you learn them. You're late. That means we're still on Betty. We don't see Natalie. That's all that says. We just hear her. We don't see her. You're late. Good morning to you too. Interior fancy high-rise, 12th floor day. Natalie, now we meet Natalie. She's capitalized. Anytime we meet somebody for the first time, you have to capitalize their name. So that's a trick for the casting department. Now they're going to go back and see every time they meet a character that's capitalized for the first time, then they know who to cast and not that they have to cast somebody for that. So that's why we do that. But you wouldn't do that every single time, or else they think they have to cast that many characters. So Natalie, Betty's best friend, falls into step with Betty. She hands over a document. Legal says we can't say organic. We said organic 11 times. Well, that's just bad writing. They move past reception where a huge sign reads Bjorn and Buchanan Marketing Agency. And Mrs. Buchanan killed the new Harley tagline. What's wrong with Harley Davidson? Get out of the way, losers. I don't know, but it's dead. Betty groans as she and Natalie round a corner. The two of them walk briskly through the building, filled with cubicles and busy employees. Notice busy employees is capitalized. Why is it capitalized?
All of
People
your
to cast.
extras.
That's right. We got to cast them. Also, Mr. Buchanan's looking for you. Something about Kool-Aid's global brand VP. I think maybe Mrs. Rosenblatt's back. Mrs. Rosenblatt's black? Mrs. Rosenblatt's black? Mrs. Rosenblatt's back. Wow. That's a tongue twister. But why? We're not due to meet for another month. That woman terrifies me. Snacks? I could use the fortification. They round another corner and disappear from sight. Okay. So, question, by the way, what genre is this?
It seems pretty lighthearted to me.
It does. I
I'm
was
getting
gonna.
comedy vibes, or maybe just, women's contemporary. It's just kind of what I'm guessing so far, but
I was guessing comedy.
It's comedy. It's action comedy.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's going to be a spy thriller comedy. Right? Because you got that intrigue in the beginning. Okay. So anyway, so about the capitalization thing, here's the truth. I've got a video on my website, and if you go to my website and you click on to watch the free training video for my class formatting as an art form, you'll have to give me your email address. And when you do that, you will automatically get a handout of all the things that have to be capitalized in a screenplay. So I have a document for you that you can go to that. I'll put I put it in the chat, I guess. If you go to let's see, www.thestorytellersmission. just on the home page. I don't know why it's not turning color. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So if you scroll down on the home page, you're going to, oh, Melissa beat me to it. Jeez. If you scroll down, you're going to see, a free video, a training video for formatting. And you don't even have to watch the video. You just click on that. It will force you to give me your email address, which will get you on the email list. And one of the things that you'll get is a free handout, which is the capitalizations. Everything you have to capitalize.
Some of the things that I saw, I'm guessing were for the sound department.
Yes, that's right. Good. So see, you're already picking up on it. There's certain things that you have to capitalize because it's for the other departments. And some of it is like special effects. Some of it, yes. Now props you have to be careful about. It's only if it's special effects. So sometimes, but it's also to emphasize for the camera guy. Sometimes we're saying we're close up. It's a way to cheat. It's a way to direct the camera and tell the director what we're focusing on. So if I said, a hand grabs a necklace, I know that I'm close up on a hand grabbing a necklace. And so it's just tricks. It's just tricks. Some of it is for the production process. Some of it is for the stylistic elements. And zoom, that's that sort of thing. Ding, special effects, sound effects. Things like that. Boom, crash. I'm going to caps all those things. So anyway, you'll pick that up. You'll see the handout. Next week, when we come back, I did have one person turn in a screenplay. So we're going to evaluate theirs. And then, if there's no more, if you have something you want to try just for fun. In fact, I was going to give you a writer's prompt that if you wanted to try something and you just wanted to try it, you could try it and you could submit it and we can look at it. If I don't get any more submissions, we'll just do the one we have and then we can come back to something I'm writing and look at what I've written. But if you want to try your hand at this, here is your prompt for next week, okay? It's going to be exterior lake day, Billy 12 skips a rock across the lake. Suddenly, ... and then you're off and running. That's your prompt. So I've given you a character and I've given you a location. And now all you have to do is try to fill out these other things. Now, the other thing I will say is there is proper form, like you probably don't have final draft if you're just trying your hand at this. And so what you're going to have to do is center the dialogue. That's actually not correct. There are specific ways that it lines up on the page. But if you're doing it in Word, you're not going to worry about that right now. Let's see, I'm just thinking maybe I should have provided a sample so you could at least see it, but you can just look up proper screenplay formatting or, look up a screenplay and kind of get a feel for that. I can provide that next week, some samples, some places that, screenplays you can download that are really good that you can look at as an example. But hopefully, yes. And you can, and for your prompt, for the thing, I would just say, try to shoot for 3 to 5 pages. 3 to 5 pages. And by the way, you might go to another location. So it doesn't have to be 3 to 5 pages in that location. That's just the starting scene. It might be that, I'm not going to give you ideas of what happens, but you can bring in another character or you can bring in a special effect. It can be it can be anything. Use your imagination. Just have fun. Like, you don't have to be attached to this at all. Like, you can just have fun. It can be crazy, right? So, just have fun with it and then submit it to me, and I can break it down for you, and we can go there. So,
Sounds great.
any questions before we finish off today? I'm sorry we started late because of me, technology.
No worries at all. I think
We
it
did
was
have one
great.
question. It said, is dialogue centered so the directors or actors can read quickly when shooting? Like, I think centered on the page.
No, it's centered on the page because of timing. It just works out. Dialogue actually takes up more time than a visual image, and so you had to have less room on the page because it's just about timing. It just adds up to the 1 page, 1 minute, and that's why it is. Now it does help, and notice I'm capitalizing Betty over. Oh, you don't see my script anymore. Let me go back. Boop, boop, boop. This is actually a different version of Betty because, I'm doing rewrites. Betty, I capitalized Betty over the character name or over her dialogue. We don't say that when we're reading it, but it helps us to know who's speaking, and the actors absolutely need to know. Notice how long these little chunks. This is a lot of dialogue. It works, and sometimes they can do that if it needs to be there. This is a parenthetical, which we didn't talk about. But anyway, you see that that's still broken up with different things here to help break up the dialogue.
Much like beats would appear in a novel.
Much like beats would appear in a novel. That's right. And sometimes, there's more dialogue than others without it being broken up, and that means usually it's going pretty fast. Notice also, generally speaking, dialogue is pretty fast, but there's a lot of right here. We're getting a lot of description and very little dialogue. Here she's got blood on her pocket, and there's a flash drive. And she knows that she's been handed a flash drive. It's the inciting incident. All right. Anyway. Anyway, hopefully that helps get you started. It's fun. Have fun with this. I mean, I love it. I love being a screenwriter. So.
Absolutely. And we did have some people ask, so I'm just going to clarify for the recording for those who aren't following our chat. If you are a member of Writers Chat, which you have to be if you want to participate in this, the submissions info is in our Writers Chat group, which is Writers Chat members at Facebook. And so you can go in, join the group, and you can find access to the submission information in our files section. We have all of the details there, including how to submit to Zena. And when you chat with her, of course, you can ask her questions if there's anything that isn't clarified in that submission info, but it's all there for you.
Yay! I love screenwriting. I hope it's contagious for you.
Oh, me too. It's been fun just watching this and learning, seeing the inside perspective of it. Lots of things that I never knew.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so we're done for today then. I wish I had more time. I would keep you for another hour, but we don't. So we'll call it good, and we'll come back next week and we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. Brandy, any closing comments before we go? Of course, again, everybody knows we'll be coming back next week with Zena to do live critiques and to share more about this process, give us a little more insight. Yeah, anything else that we want to share with everybody before we close out the recording? All right. So if you are not joining us live, of course, then you're watching this on the replay, and you can catch all of our replays. We have over 300 now on YouTube, on Writers Chat. Yeah, through all the years that we've been here. I know I see that expression Zena's making. Yeah, since our inception when we were part with Serious Writer, all of those coming over now to our new YouTube channel, Writers Chat. You can see over 300 replays of just about every topic that we've covered in writing and craft and industry. And it's just a wealth of information that's free for you to access. We invite you to go check it out, and you'll be able to catch this one and look back over everything that Zena shared today. And of course, we invite you to join our group as well on Facebook. Again, Writers Chat members at facebook.com. And I guess we will catch you next time. For those of you who are here live, stick around for the after party. We'll see you later.